Chad.
I was going to say 19 is cool.
Thank you, Chad.
You're welcome.
Take pictures. I'm gonna have you step just a little bit. I want to get
Okay.
that
Yeah.
monitor behind you guys.
God, you can stand behind me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second honoree is Nancy Betts. Nancy served on the Human Services Advisory Committee from 2011 to 2019. Again, thanking you for 9 years of service, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Our next honoree is Ken Mergen. Ken served on the Stearns County Park Commission, also from 2011 to 2019. We thank Ken for 9 years of service.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Our next honoree is Fran Ramler. Fran served on the Great River Regional Library Board from 2017 to 2019. Thank you for your 3 years of service, Ken. Fran, I'm sorry. Goodness.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
All right.
Our final honoree, Matt Laubach, is unable to attend today. He developed a last-minute conflict. Matt served on the Stearns County Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board for 10 years, from 2010 to 2019, and we'll certainly be connecting with him to ensure he gets his plaque. But invite a round of applause, also recognizing Matt for his dedication. And again, thank you to all of our board and committee members for your service. It's certainly greatly appreciated.
You got to raise your chair a little.
Among other things. Let's see. All right. Next is our public access forum. Anyone wishing to address the board on issues that are not found on today's agenda can do so at this time. And we ask you to step forward, approach the microphone, limit your comments to 3 or 4 minutes. Oh, we've got some items, the
Just
blue
to add to
packet.
the agenda.
Well,
yeah.
we're doing it.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
We're not doing the agenda yet, are we?
Oh, you didn't do the agenda yet, okay.
Okay.
Well, let's,
Go back to where you were.
okay, now I lost my place. Anyway, no, I didn't. Total allotted time is, for the public access forum is 10 minutes, and speakers can use the public access forum once a month, I believe. And so if anybody wants to address the board on any item not on the agenda, please do so now. Okay, that's the first call. Second call, anybody want to address the board on any topic? And third call, anybody want to address the board on any topic? If not, we'll go to you want to approve the agenda, gang? We can do that.
I just
So,
know there's 2 additions to the
two
consent
And then
agenda.
2 additions in the blue packet.
One is to authorize an application for a COPS grant, which would fund school resource officer in the sheriff's department. And the second is to approve negotiating starting salary for a vacancy above the step G, and that's for our procurement manager.
Okay.
I'll move that.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda, are there any items that you want to pull? We will be discussing, I'm suggesting we approve as it's shown, and with a brief discussion on item number 5 after approval.
Okay, so
And Mr.
moved.
Chair, does that include the two items we just?
Yeah, plus the two additional ones for the COPS federal grant application, and then negotiating the salary for the procurement officer. Okay,
So moved, Mr. Chair.
and do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do we want to
Opposed?
have a discussion?
Now what?
Oh, okay.
Now, and would, relative to item number 5, if we could get some clarification on that particular item, take it away.
Standing at a drum roll, but
Yeah,
Shelley Vincent, Environmental Services Director. The question in front of you, or that had been in front of you, was related to a contract. Those contracts do not have specific timetables on for future reviews, so if there is a request in the future to reconsider that action, that can be brought at any time. It may behoove that party to take a little time to consider all of the options and the timing related to that item. So I think there was a 3-year time frame related to the additional density that they were requesting. So they can ask that at any time, but you didn't have anything that was being requested of you at this moment. So when they come back, if they make a request to amend that subdivision agreement, we will go through a public hearing process again and renotice at that point.
and they won't be charged.
There is no charge for an amendment to a subdivision agreement.
And then I'm confused on the, what's this application, that 60-day rule? What's that about?
The 60-day rule applies to any land use decisions, and we are required to, after a decision is made, send contemporaneous findings. So that's what you approved today, was your findings based on the previous decision. So those will be sent, and then if there's a request to rehear something, they can come back in front of the board.
Okay, does that have to, and we're the county board's the only one that hears that matter?
Yeah, technically, the subdivision agreement is a contract between you and that party. Because of the information they had brought forward previously with the rezoning and the platting, that your desire was to bring it back in front of the planning commission first and then come back to you. So whether you choose to do that again, if we have another request, that will be up to you to decide whether you hear it first or you send it back to the planning commission. That would be-
Oh, we've got some
Okay.
flexibility there?
Yes.
Okay.
Shelley, and that's what I was going to ask. So it's possible that the planning commission will not see that?
It's up to you as a board to make that decision.
Okay,
Because it's a
again,
contract.
yeah, because we had, all those planning commission members had visited it, and they approved the first one that had come through a year ago on a split decision, but this one was unanimous. So they would not necessarily get any testimony or hear anything about that?
It's a contract between
Okay.
the county board and that property owner.
Mhm.
So typically, when we have an amendment to the subdivision agreement, that is just a decision between the board and that landowner. In this particular case, due to the controversial nature of that process, I'll just throw it out there
Yeah.
since there was so many different things that they were doing, you as a board decided to send it back to the planning commission for a public hearing to go through that specific item in the subdivision agreement. And that would be your choice in the future if you want to. If we hear a request to reconsider that subdivision agreement, that would be the decision of the board, whether you want to send it back to the planning commission or not for a public hearing.
Any other questions by board members?
Yeah, I guess I was going to bring this one up too. Was there something that was missed then if the request was something that our ordinance allowed? You know, after reading the letter from Mr. Donahue, you know, it sounds like it was a procedural issue we were voting on.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Notch, I think the planning commission was very clear after their public hearing, after a rezoning, and then the platting, that they wanted to be very mindful of all of the activities that were occurring on that site. So I think it was very specifically stated that they didn't want any additional density on that lot based on what had been requested. That didn't mean that within our rules and requirements, there aren't other options for people at times. But in this particular case, that was the decision of the Planning Commission based on the previous activities and discussion with the rezoning. Because you can't condition a rezoning, I think there was a lot of conversation about what should we do with the subdivision agreement. And that's why it was written the way it was written. And now that's why he's requesting to make the change, or previously requested to make that change.
Anything else?
I would just say that if it does come back to us, I would encourage the board to get out there and take a look at it. It's very condensed and congested out there, very tight squeeze of buildings and driveways and sheds, and the density is a major issue out there, and so is the topography. So the residents around there are very concerned about that, and that's why they would rather not see any more development specifically tight in that area, you know, due to the issues that they have with the runoff and the water level. So,
Anything else by any board members? One crisis at a time, Joe.
we got a bunch.
So, thank you, Shelley. I'd like to recess the regular board meeting and to conduct the Human Services Board meeting. Come on down, Melissa.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Melissa Huberty, I'm the Human Services Administrator. Today on the Human Services Consent Agenda, there are two items. They are items E1 and E2 on pages 31 and 32. And item E1 is a request to authorize the designation of the Community Health Services, which is the CHS Administrator and Agent of Community Health Board, from Renee Frown-Dienst, who is the Division Director over Public Health, to myself, giving her impending retirement. This is a mandatory role, and the CHS Administrator acts as the county's top public health official and is required to plan and organize, direct, and manage the affairs of the Community Health Board. Also, item E2 is just for informational purposes, and it's the Human Services claims paid. And once, if you have any questions, I'm available for those items, and then I have one last comment at the very end, with your permission.
All right, do you have any questions, concerns, observations from Melissa?
I'll move the consent agenda items.
All righty. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thanks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
All right, thank you. One last point related to the recent outbreak of the novel coronavirus. I'm aware that Ms. Froundy sent information to the board recently, and I wanted to let you know that we're monitoring that outbreak very carefully. Based on current information, the immediate health risk to the general public is considered very low, and we have a very strong disease surveillance system in place that includes partnerships between the local and healthcare systems, the Minnesota Department of Health, and Stearns County Public Health. So if the public would like further information, they can go to the Minnesota Department of Health website, or they can certainly contact us, and we'll have information posted on the website. So,
Do you have any questions?
I know that Ms. Froundiest isn't here, so it's unfair to even say this to you, but my understanding is that locally what we need to really be vigilant about is influenza.
correct.
And continuing that's really one of our bigger challenges as a nation anyways. Not to say that, I find this personally a very scary thing. I have a son who's supposed to be going to China, and thankfully he delayed, postponed, hopefully for a long time, going. But influenza does continue to be the thing we should really be on top of as people.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clark, that is absolutely correct. My understanding is there's many more thousands of cases of people dying of influenza every year than is it the case of this, but this is not something that we take lightly either, so we monitor it very closely since it's new and it's similar to the SARS virus.
Any other questions or observations from Melissa? I'd hate to see there be a national crisis and then to have Stearns County miss out.
Oh, this might be when you want us to miss out.
So if you don't have anything else from Melissa, we can wrap this up and move on to parks.
All
Thank you,
right,
Melissa.
thank you.
Come on down, Ben.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Ben Anderson, Stearns County Parks Director. Today on the agenda, I have two items for you. The first is as we continue to try and provide a high-quality recreational trail system throughout Stearns County, along with that comes maintenance that needs to be completed. Before you, the Parks Department is seeking a $25,000 grant from the Minnesota DNR Federal Recreational Trail Grant Program. This money, if received, will be used to assist with crack filling and seal coating the section of the Lake Wobegon Trail that lies between the cities of Melrose and Freeport, approximately 6 miles. The Parks Department is providing a $25,000 match that would come from the fiscal year 2020 parks budget. Each year, we do request between $50,000 and $60,000 within our operating budget for maintenance of the trail system. With that, I can take any questions.
Yeah, what have you got some questions for Ben? Does that keep up with, at that rate, does that keep up with our trail maintenance? What's your opinion?
We have been able to leverage some other outside funding to do some complete restoration of trail, like we will be completing by June 30th of this year, because some of the trail is getting to be over 20 years old. But in general, yes, that does do a fairly good job of keeping up on where we're at and what we need.
Okay. Anything else? So the appropriate action would be to adopt the resolution for the trail grant, is that correct? Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a motion to move on Ben's suggestion?
So moved.
And we have a second?
No, second.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Anything else for us, Ben?
Yes, I have the second agenda item for you. Is a request to authorize the County Parks Department to pursue potential park property located north of Mississippi River County Park and to complete a master plan for the Great River Park Complex. And Mr. Chair, I'd like to kind of split these two topics into two discussions. The first starting with the master plan, if that's all right with you.
Okay, if no one has an objection, I can let Ben proceed with his plan here.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Ben.
All right, so we'll start with the master plan. So at the November 19th, 2019 County Board meeting, the County Commissioners unanimously approved a resolution supporting a regional park designation application for the Great River Park Complex. The Great River Park Complex is comprised of Stearns County's Mississippi River County Park and Benton County's Bend in the River Park. Recently, we received news that the Great River Park Complex received an application rank of high, and thus we are eligible for designation. The next step is to complete a master plan for the Great River Park Complex. A master plan must be completed and accepted by the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission before the park is eligible for legacy funding. In order for us to be eligible for the next Park and Trail Legacy funding cycle, we must complete a master plan so it can be reviewed before the end of April. So essentially, if we want any sort of grant dollars for going forward with future park development, possible land acquisition, any sort of thing like that, this master plan has to be completed before we can become eligible for those dollars.
Okay, can you go into some detail of what the master plan effort would entail?
Yes, so the master planning effort would be similar to the Kramer Lake Wildwood that we went through about 3 years ago. However, it should be a little more simplified because the Mississippi River County Park is mostly developed, whereas Kramer Lake, there's no development out there currently. So we're not necessarily starting from scratch collecting ideas, but they're essentially the master planning process includes a series of public meetings to collect public input on what they would like to see in the park, future park developments, what's there, how to improve how the park is today. This would also, and then incorporate other like accessibility, things that people would like to see. Potential park property could be identified within this. This will be a process that will need to be coordinated with Benton County as well, because we did put that joint application in. The master plan is actually would be between both Benton and Stearns County. So.
Okay, to what extent can we do that sort of thing in-house, and to what extent would we have to employ or involve other folks, consultants, et cetera?
All right. My request to the board would be to hire a consultant using Parkland dedication funds to help pay for Stearns County portion. Right now, with what we have going on within our park system, our staff just doesn't have the time to put the effort into completing this the way that it needs to be done, and or in the time frame that we're looking at potentially.
Okay, got an idea how long this would take?
We're hoping to have it done by the end of April, May at the latest,
The plan?
the plan.
If
So
you've
3 months,
contacted-
hopefully.
Okay.
So
You've contacted someone about getting involved in this?
part of the request for this would be to put out the initial RFP to
Okay.
solicit those.
All right. Well, coming up with a plan first, I could see, and then we can decide on where we're going from there later. Go ahead, Steve.
So, Ben, would this be a shared cost arrangement then with Benton County as far as this master plan expenses?
Yes.
Okay.
And, excuse me, Mr. Chair,
go
but
ahead.
I've had conversations with the Benton County Administrator, and he feels very confident that he would be able to get their portion of the funds within the time frame that we're looking at as well.
Okay. Anything else, any other board members? Well, if not, I guess we could,
So you want a motion just on doing the master plan part of it?
I think
Yes.
so. That'd be appropriate. And who would second that?
I'd second that.
Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Nothing wrong, I guess, with a plan. Gets more interesting when we start spending real money. So, does anybody have anything else here for Ben?
I do have a second portion
Okay,
to this
that's right.
agenda item, and that is to consider the county parks pursuing some potential park property that is located just north of Mississippi River County Park. This first section will be in reference to the map that is on the screen and also in the Commissioner's packet, page 40. The Stearns County Comprehensive Plan, the March 2008, page 517, calls for expansion of Mississippi River County Park to the north to capture the scenic bluff view of the river. The Parks Department has been in communication with the Broker family for many years about the possibility of adding this property to Mississippi River County Park. Currently, there is 74 acres for sale directly north of Mississippi Park. This property not only provides a unique bluff view of the river area, but also contains rare undeveloped river frontage. The addition of this property to our current system would protect this land from future development, protect our current park from potential development encroachment, and would also preserve a 2-mile section of the river from development. 0.7 miles of that 2 miles would come from this potential land acquisition. We currently have 1.3 miles that is protected with the park acreage that the county owns. If we could move on to map number 2, please. I'm getting some help. All right. So directly across the river, you can see on this map, you have Bend in the River Regional Park, which is part of that designation application and master planning we just talked about. And then directly to the northwest of that is a wildlife management area. Currently, those two areas combined can protect about 2 miles of river from development now on the eastern side of the river. Together, on the western side of the river with that 74 acres of potential park property. Again, adding that in, that would preserve almost 2 miles on the western side. So we could preserve a corridor in an area of the river that has no other protections from development currently. A nice scenic view that benefits not only wildlife, but also protects the highly erodible sandy banks. It protects the shoreline and helps preserve water quality, not only for local residents such as our friends in the city of St. Cloud here that receive their drinking water from there, but also those who live between us and the Gulf of Mexico. It also provides more public access to the pristine Mississippi River. It falls within the Anoka Sand Plain, and there is a big push right now for protection and restoration and enhancement to increase the biodiversity, habitat, connectivity, and landscape resilience of property located within that Anoka Sand Plain. This area would also provide river users a reprieve from looking at houses, and also serves as a significant sized patch of wildlife and migratory bird habitat. If we could go back to map number 1, please. So on this map here, I'd like to point out, if you look directly to the north, you can see where the lots of the development start, and directly to the south where the lots start. And I was fortunate enough this summer to get on a pontoon with the Minnesota DNR and go out there and take a ride through this area. And it is a very, very unique setting, and where you go from what is, I would consider, very highly populated into an area that you almost feel like you're in the wilderness going through this. I think it's a really unique opportunity. It's a chunk of property that directly connects to an existing county park. There's no parcels in between that would have to be, acquired to make that direct connection. So I just think that, it would be a really good chunk of property to add into our park system and protect that space along the river. With that, I can take some questions.
What do you have for questions, folks?
What's the price on it right now?
So the last listing, it's currently not on the market, but the last listing was at 1.9 million. Tax assessed value is at 1.3.
Could you talk a little bit about some of the potential opportunities for us to acquire funds?
Yeah, so there's a couple different options for us to pursue funding. One would be to go to the legislator and have a bonding bill drafted this session to get funding. A second route would be completing this master plan in that timely fashion and requesting those legacy dollars by the end of August this year, which is kind of the push for the timing frame of completing that master plan. So those are our two biggest options at this point.
Anybody else?
You got a couple comments. First of all, we were out to this property this past year. I think as a group we met out there, and some of you folks had seen the park, and also we had the map of this property as it became available. Benny did a nice job explaining just about what it is and what the potential we have out there. And I very much echo those points, because to me it does make very much sense. Sitting on the Park Commission too, when we look at that $1.9 million, that's something we don't want to take out of the county coffers, and that's why we would be pursuing grant money, because this would be an asset not necessarily just for the local residents, not just for Stearns County, but for the region, for the state, and also the protection for federal waterways. I think somewhere 30 million people drink out of the Mississippi River, and this just adds the protection of that. One thing though to highlight, and Ben mentioned it, I do have my pointer from Planning Commission, and that is the development. Oh, look at that. Well, it doesn't work. But you can see south of where it says Mississippi River Park, all those little slices, that's all development up there. And then at the corner up where the blue section is too, those little slices, that's all development. Well, if we would let that piece go to development. Of course, that would all end up into be houses as well. If we can go to the next slide as well, the next page. Can we do that?
Yep.
You can see then that wildlife management is just across the river from there. And so then you'd be putting houses on the opposite side of that wildlife management. And from a DNR standpoint, that's not necessarily the best situation either. So now you have encroachment between a hunting area and a residential area. And basically, in the long run, over the next 100 years, that's going to fill in with houses. If we preserve this piece, we'll again have that 2-mile stretch, which will be a natural area, just 12 miles north of St. Cloud, which would be a tremendous asset for everybody in this area. So I very much would like to see us move forward on this. But again, I don't want to write the check out of the county coffers.
Is there any reason why it couldn't be purchased for a wildlife management area? Besides the county doing it?
I can ask. That is one option. We are looking at that potential. Of course, we do have to have the DNR step forward to do that. Ben had alluded to the Anoka Sand Plains. If we work in that direction, that can be an option. Again, with the Mississippi River Park, we have to decide, do we want hunting on our park property? That would be one thing. But there can be sometimes a compromise as far as what type of hunting. You know, we could potentially have an agreement where maybe we would allow waterfowl along the shoreline, maybe we would allow archery only, or maybe we'd allow special hunts, but that would be another way, you know, to acquire funds for the property.
Okay, Jeff?
Well, this is one of those phrases I'm going to end up using a lot, and I think twice today, is death by 1,000 cuts to our taxpayers. This is assessed right now at $1.3 million. That will come off the property tax rolls, plus whatever else is. This would be highly taxable area for housing, and with all of our ordinances that we have in place now to say that this would add pollution to the river, I think it's totally without merit. I just absolutely cannot support this because, again, you know, we've got our 80-year-old widows and our single mothers out there that it's like they have unlimited funds as we keep going forever and ever, because this is a double whammy here. You take it off the rolls, it costs more to keep it up to date, and you get the same people paying more and more all the time. So taking this off the tax rolls and adding it, because we've been increasing our property tax levy by millions of dollars every year for the last 4 or 5 years. So I definitely cannot support this. It just financially does not work out.
Cheryl?
Oh, I certainly share your concern about property being off the tax rolls. Certainly in general, I mean, I think we've got a lot of universities, we've got a lot of churches, we got a lot of properties that are off the rolls. Having said that, I got a chance to go on the river too. I hadn't actually been up in that area. It's pretty amazing thinking about the approaches that are already on there that would be pretty accessible. The one thing I didn't hear, and I apologize, Ben, if you said it and I just missed it, there's some incredible fishing, right? I mean, like incredible fishing right along that area. So from a added value to our residents, from a broader recreational tourism, there's some opportunities where adding this into the mix, whether we own it or the DNR owns it or whoever owns it, really could be I guess, a feather in our cap. And it's been on the market off and on for a long time. So from a development standpoint, it doesn't seem like they've been successful for whatever reason. Heard some reasons, but for whatever reason, being able to do what might be the other, piece that would be helpful to us in terms of adding extra tax income. I know that doesn't negate taking it off the books.
Because it's already valued at $1.3 million for tax purposes. So that's quite an income.
It is. There may be, again, some offsets that whether they're directly to our budget or into the mix locally, depending upon who's utilizing it. I think one of the things from a, kind of a broader looking forward is how, we don't have a great way to really capture right now additional revenue to the region because we are attracting more anglers or we are dealing with some other challenges. This is kind of a unique property. I mean, I for one still hope we can figure out how to get a restaurant back on the Mississippi. So I know that's not happening on this property no matter what. So this is not, sometimes looking at things, is it development that's going to bring more to the region? Is it something else? And in this case, at least personally, I think the pros outweigh my significant concerns about taking property off the tax rolls.
Steve?
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't be in favor of pursuing adding it to a bonding bill. I think in the state and federal legislatures already too much is added to bonding bills instead of doing just the basics. Let's get the roads, let's get transportation, let's get the basics funded first and then come to these items later. I'd be more in favor if we work on the master plan first and then give the option to come back and look at it once, you have more of a price determination. But instead of the county just doing this alone, maybe we need to be partnering with DNR or somebody else to look at doing it. I mean, if it's been on the market this long, either price too high or not enough development potential, there's something that's not attractive enough to develop it. Not to say that somebody couldn't come and do it, but in my opinion, I wouldn't be rushing into spending that kind of money.
Randy, did you have a comment?
Just a little bit on the taxes. The property right now is classified as ag, and it's also in green acres. So the tax is about $3,500 a year. And if it goes to the state, like a wildlife management area, we'd get PILT, and PILT would be a similar or more amount. And then, of course, if it's parks, we would not get anything. So.
All right. So at this
One more
juncture,
comment, Mr. Chair. We did talk about the 1.9, but it had been on the market as high as, 3.4, Ben? Is that correct?
Yeah, around 4 million.
Yeah. So the price, and that's what made it attractive to the Park Commission, is that when it was that high, it was thought to be unapproachable, but when it came down to it's actually near its appraised value for agriculture, then it became more appealing. And to your point, Steve, then not looking for it for bonding, but legacy grant money would be something we'd be pursuing after the master plan.
so at this juncture, folks, what we got approval to do some planning on this. And so that's going to take place. And maybe we'd be well-served to leave it at that for now and come back and once we have that plan and we might actually know more about what we're talking about without going into a lot of detail. I've heard enough, but I have enough to disagree with. So my suggestion is we got the plan going, we could wait on this part.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair.
I'd be okay with that.
It wouldn't, it would keep it alive, it wouldn't
Right.
End this, so go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say, with that particular comment, I totally agree. I mean, if we're talking about legacy funds, they could certainly wait. But one thing I do want to say, and Steve, just so you know, because I do agree also with what you said, but that's not how bonding bills work. There will be some part of the bonding bill that will go to projects like this. And so it will not go to roads, it will not go to bridges, it will not go to higher ed. Some version of this, well, the only question is who gets it. So the two reasons that, positive reasons that I can come up with off the top of my head for pursuing that is one, education, one, we might actually get money, which would be great, and that takes us off of another project that we could pursue legacy funding for, or something else. So, I mean, just to throw that out there, I think, given what the timeline is, it might be a little challenging, and we would need our local legislators to really go to it. But the other piece is education. It gives the legislature and others who sit on some of the other funding mechanisms to have a better understanding of what's out here. It might actually help us identify some other resources. So those are the two reasons that I could come up with right now for not taking that off the table. Although, like I said, it's kind of a long shot at this point to actually get that. But that's the only thing, Mr. Chair and Steve, in that mix.
No problem. Even if we leave it just where it is for now, this matter, we got something done today. So, I don't want to see this die, but I think I want more information. So I'm not gonna call for a vote on this.
Okay.
I don't want to see the board going on record of
Sure.
seeing this thing go down. So,
Right.
because,
Okay.
I'll, you know,
Right.
so,
And-
hold the thought, get the plan done, and come on back and keep us in the loop, and we'll go from there.
Sure.
From a real estate perspective, if someone's going to develop this for real estate issues, there are a host of environmental issues that have to be worked through to make this happen. So the reality is the property at once presents opportunities, but also challenges. So it would really be a big bite for a developer to take this on, or commercial or residential development. And there are a bunch of other opportunities out there in the community to do this before it takes on something like this. You know what's going on now?
I think just to clarify, so we'll move ahead with the master plan, and then after the master plan is complete, then we'll come back and revisit potentially pursuing the property.
Thank you, Ben.
All right.
Just, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, we did have preliminary conversations with the broker trust. It's held by a trust. And if we did get authorization to pursue this, what we thought we would do is we would go secure appraisals. Any funding that we're going to request from the state will require those appraisals. So I just wanted to make sure that the board knew kind of where we thought we would go if we had approval here. So, and that's important to the legacy grant that's due later this year, and it would be important if we were to pursue bonding as well. So I think if we delay, we're probably not going to be able to consider bonding for it.
And that's fine.
Yep,
I think
be
it's,
okay.
for those of you that want to see the county do this, it's, you kept it alive. And for those of you that are reluctant, well, we're waiting for the plan. So I think there's a piece of this for, both perspectives. Okay? Well, thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else for us?
I do not. Ski trails are in great shape right now. We're hoping for a little bit more snow. So,
Alrighty.
thank you.
Thank you. I think we could have a public hearing on a rezoning request for the Hanauer Trust in Avon. Shelley, and, well, it isn't Angie, but we'll accept your expertise and commentary on this. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Shelley Benson, Environmental Services, and I have Environmental Specialist Heidi Winskowski with me. Angie Berg is unable to be with us this morning. So I will have Heidi go through the request in front of you for public hearing.
Good morning. This public hearing is to consider a rezoning request submitted by Dwayne and Ramona Hanauer of Avon, Minnesota, according to Section 4.10 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance Number 439, to rezone approximately 40 acres from the Agriculture 40 zoning district to the Residential 10 zoning district. And this is located in Section 20 of St. Wendell Township. The Planning Commission held a public hearing in December and unanimously recommended denial of this rezoning request. And then on January 7th, the County Board voted to hold another public hearing for this. And I'll go through just a little bit of the background of this. So it's about 40 acres that they want to rezone. It is located on a township road, 115th Avenue. St. Wendell Township has reviewed and recommended approval of the rezoning. Some setback impacts, there is a registered feedlot to the east of this property, and to maintain that as a conforming feedlot for setback purposes, there's a small area of the requested rezone area that would need to be excluded in order for the feedlot to maintain the 350-foot setback to a residential boundary. So this map here indicates that small area. So if the rezoning is recommended or is approved, that area would be excluded from, that area would stay A40 to keep the feedlot conforming. There are approximately 25 homes and 2 registered feedlots within a half mile of this property. And by rezoning this, they would potentially be able to split the, into 4 residential lots. And that's about all I have.
Okay, any questions, concern from, clarifications from board members? This didn't seem to kick up much dust going through the process. Mildly surprising. Any of you hear from any constituents, commentary on this?
I did not. No.
Steve?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Mr. Chair, there was testimony at the Planning Commission in opposition from a neighbor, but that would be a part of the normal process, which is part of the reason, some of the reason I think that the Planning Commission recommended denial.
Okay.
Is any of this 40-acre parcel farmed right now?
I believe.
I believe some of it's
Or is it just grass?
tillable.
It was in CRP, it is no longer.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, if there's nothing else, we can close the public hearing.
Oh,
Do we need to call for?
Gotta open it.
We have to open the
Oh, gotta open it? That's right. Boy, all these details. Okay, we're gonna open the public hearing. If any members of the public are here to comment on this, let's hear your comments now. You heard from the staff and some mild commentary from my esteemed colleagues. Any members of the public here that want to comment on this particular matter, now's your time to speak. If there's any members, step up to the podium. We need your name and address and your perspective on the proposal.
Dan Zimmerman, Avon, Minnesota, attorney representing the Hanauers. You already have in your packet the letter that I sent in response to the Planning Commission's findings, so I don't want to belabor those points. I just have 2 quick comments. One is, R10 zoning is a part of the zoning ordinance overall, and there needs to be some kind of place for those type of pieces of land out there so that you have enough acreage to meet the other requirements such as larger accessory buildings, hobby farms and such. Now, on the map, if I can step over here.
Sure.
It's one of the things that's called spot zoning, but if you look at it, there's 10-acre parcels here, and this parcel to the top on the north, that was just rezoned as R10 within the last year. And as far as the finding of the high Lisa score and the small spot zoning acreage involved, all I can say is what my letter covered, and that is there's already been a number of those approved by the township and the county, so not sure why this wouldn't be subject to similar treatment as those. In fact, in September of 2019, there was a 20-acre parcel with a 75 Lisa score that was approved in St. Wendell Township, about 2 miles from this property. So we think that this one makes sense to us anyhow, and would like the approval of it. I'll answer questions if there are.
You got any questions of Dan? Anybody? If not, is there anybody, any other member of the public that has some comments to make on this proposal? Any other member? Come on down, give us your name and address, and share your perspective on this proposal.
My name is Vern Bartos, and
Address?
11722 340th Street. If you want to put up that picture, you can see the one with the red markings.
Oh,
This is us, right here.
Okay,
So we're very concerned what happens to our north.
all right.
For about 1.5 miles to 2 miles, all directions, the area is prime hunting. And I'm very concerned putting in more houses, more families and that within that area. We've already had one incident where people were hunting to our north, firing towards the south, and it hit one of our buildings. So we are concerned with the people moving in, building houses, and hunting again from all directions. And this is not only hunting deer, but also pheasants and turkey and others. We're concerned about that.
Okay,
Now, we can certainly compromise and say 1 or 2 families coming in, but 4 would line up that whole area along 115. And going north of that, also, there are other houses towards the dead end of 115.
okay, okay.
So that's our primary concern, my wife and I.
All righty, thank you. Any other members of the public want to comment on this proposal? Any other members of the public that are present here want to comment on this proposal? Third and last call. Is there any other members of the public that want to comment on this proposal? If not, I'll close the public hearing. What would my colleague suggest from here? Do
Mr.
you
Chair,
wanna see?
I just have a question. You know, we've gotten a lot of these from St. Wendell Township. Are they pretty much open to doing this throughout their township? And the other question would be, you know, we're working on our comprehensive plan. Is there anything in the St. Wendell, St. Joe area that would change how anybody could go about rezoning their property? Are we going to kind of maybe do a process like the first time where the townships can pick the areas, what they want them to be, or?
Mr.
I don't
Chair,
want to be out there too far, but in the same breath, if we're going to be working on a comp plan that could make this an easily happening occurrence.
Just, yeah. Go ahead, Steph. You're as familiar with this, with their thinking as anyone. You want to share that?
Well, I'm not going to share their thinking. What I'm going to do is express.
Well, what's been our past experience?
Right. Our past experience is that the St. Wendell Township Board typically wants to allow for residential dwellings and ag at the same time, and therein lies the conflict that we perpetually run into. I know there are ways for us to consider this. We've talked about, are there other options for us? Are there other ways for us to look at St. Wendell? And I think that's why we're looking at the comprehensive plan. I don't know if we have anything specifically set out for St. Wendell, but I know it's a concern and it's been brought up and discussed at our comprehensive planning process. And maybe within our ag areas, we have to think about things in a little different way when they're this close to a lot of residential development. The previous, the last rezoning that you had, which was about 2 miles away, was adjacent to the growth area of St. Wendell. This one is not. But what does growth area for St. Wendell mean? And that's our struggle, because St. Wendell Township wants to allow both ag and residential to occur. And what we're finding, as you see, is that there are conflicts in all of these things, and that is why it is such a struggle for us. So I don't have any perfect answers yet, because once we get through the comprehensive planning process, then we have to talk about implementation. And will there be other strategies in implementation related to these agricultural districts, potentially transferring of credits in a different way, looking at them differently, maybe some different zoning? I don't know yet, because we haven't finished that process.
Okay, so the answer is yes, no, and maybe.
All of the above.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments by any other board members or questions?
Of course, I had said that on the public hearing with the Planning Commission, and Mr. Bardos had commented about the encroachment, about splitting that up, about the sprawl. Mr. Sand, he works during the day. He's not here today, but he was very strongly opposed to it. He's got a piece of property that abuts this here, and he specifically moved to that area to be on a larger piece of property and to get away from development, and he was very strongly opposed to it. The Planning Commission unanimously opposed moving forward with the rezoning, and we empower those folks. They go out and they make the site visits. They listen to the testimony. They apply the policies and ordinances that we have in place. And if you take a look at their findings, they said that that splitting it up does not conform to the future land growth and both of the township and the city. And that's an issue we do have with St. Wendell. And that seems that we had a future land growth development plan with them, but yet it doesn't seem, when it comes to people expanding, I don't know if they're inhibited to say no to their neighbors or what, but we don't seem to be enforcing it. Also, this piece of property is on a dead-end road, and you can see there's other parcels along that. Is how much development do you want to continue to have happen there? And what you have is you'll have a good number of residents then that are going to be living on a dead-end road, which does present, a emergency service issue, for them. And so I would rather us go ahead and concur with the Planning Commission and deny it, but then, as we did with the property out in St. Anna, is that as we develop our comprehensive plan, we'll come back and we'll revisit this maybe as much as a year or two, and then look at the potential of what St. Wendell actually would like to be doing with these properties, because it's just going to continue as St. Cloud continues to expand out into the rural areas. It's beginning to look more and more like a patch quilt opposed to orderly annexation. So I'm going to support denial along with the Planning Commission as well.
Any other comments on this? Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I always like to look at what the people that are closest to the situation do. And St. Wendell Township approved this, and they're closest to the situation and whatever their comprehensive plan is. So I would support this.
Okay.
That's helpful. One more question. Where is St. Wendell at with a comprehensive plan? Are they utilize? Do they have one in place? Are they utilizing our process to help them?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner.
Give us some guidance.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clark, the St. Wendell Township Board does not have a comprehensive plan. The plan that they have, or the agreement they have, is with St. Joe. And they have an agreement that in the future, if they need services, they have a service area, which is more of that Pleasant Lake area. And the question has always been raised, what do you want out in that area? And what they want is A10. So they want agriculture and at a density of 4 per 40. Well, those two things don't go hand in hand. And I think that's always been the struggle. Is there a different way for us to look at St. Wendell, knowing that they have growth pressure from Sertel and St. Cloud, Are there other ways for us to consider this, but they do not have a plan per se. They want to allow for both activities to occur.
And is that something that's being looked at all with the process we're going through? Are we getting enough information to aid them?
I think we are trying to ask those questions about the process. I don't know how it will fit for each of the townships that are going through that kind of pressure, whether it be St. Wendell or Wakefield or those other townships that are experiencing similar situations. But that'll be part of the next step, is implementation of the changes to the zoning ordinance, to the, the zoning plan itself.
Are
Just let me-
those commercial businesses to the north toward the dead end?
No, Mr. Chair, no, they are not commercial businesses. I believe one of the properties does have his own, they had been in violation and had numerous cars and whatnot out there. That violation has been corrected. So it had for a little while been used commercially, but that has been corrected.
I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Clark. From Environmental Services, Angie Berg and myself are going to approach St. Wendell for a discussion here within the next month or so and have a discussion about their plan and what we've been seeing coming to the board as far as consistency and continuity, and also the future land use out there in St. Wendell. So.
Okay. Any other comments on this? Well, a motion is in order for approval or denial, and let's see if we can get this dog to hunt, huh? We need a motion of something.
I would move to approve the rezoning.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the rezoning.
I'll second it.
And we have a second. If you've got anything further relative to discussion, let's hear it now. Otherwise, I'd say the horse is dead.
I would just like to say I would like to deny and then come back after the comprehensive plan and then approach it at that time.
Okay, well, here we go. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, looks like 4-1.
Roll call.
Roll call, okay.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Persky,
Nay.
Commissioner Knott,
Aye.
Commissioner Lesmeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I know the horse is dead, but since we're done with voting, I do think that both the property owners and our board are kind of stuck in a challenging place. And I really hope, and I mean, I hope that there's a way, and I feel for our planning commission too, I hope there's a way with this process that everybody can get to a better place so there's some predictability in what's happening, because this is a lot of additional effort for everybody involved. And
Well, Mr. Chair, and I tell you, there's considerable frustration on the planning commission because we empower them, we have them do the visits, we have them apply our policies, and then it comes back to us and we ignore them. It's very frustrating for them to say, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I trying to serve the county when the county doesn't want to do what they've empowered us to do?
Well, I'll take that comment on. A long time ago, I was on the planning commission, and we had similar observations relative to the actions of the county board. And a long time ago, there was an event called the Vietnam War. And my explanation to the planning commission was that on military missions by infantry in Vietnam, there was a fellow that had to walk way out front in front of the troop, a point man, and his job was to draw the fire. And that was a very dangerous position to be in. And my observation to the planning commission is, well, you'll live through the experience, but your job is the same as the point man. So that's what they do. And the idea that their opinions their opinions are considered, you know, there are issues that come here that where reasonable minds disagree, you know. It's the nature of the beast. Okay, have you got anything else?
I do have two miscellaneous items. One is an update from Mark Lateral regarding the American Legion in Richmond that was asked about previously.
Hello, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. As Shelley indicated, I'm here to update the board regarding the American Legion, or the Richmond American Legion, and I think the update is a very positive one. Jane Canada of my staff and I had an opportunity to visit with Al Gherkin from the Legion. We had a good conversation with him. We had discussed with him the past and present and possible food options for the group as they do their meetings. The conversation was good because Al clarified what had been happening with food being prepared and brought to them, how they had moved away from that practice and now they were begin to purchase food and have from a food establishment. Our conversation then evolved into potluck and what does really potluck mean and how could it benefit the group. Through our conversation, we're going to be providing Al with information regarding guidelines for potlucks so the group can follow these. But he was pleased to learn that the group could most likely meet those conditions, which then would absolve any kind of licensing issues or needs for them as they continue to meet and share a meal together. The conversation also then, it was good for us because we also learned of two larger events that the group does besides the hamburger stand that they put together for the Richmond Lake Days. We can then accommodate those two events. One was on Memorial Day, and I don't know if the other one was on Veterans Day or the 4th of July, but they have two other larger events, and since the group already receives a special event food license from our department for their hamburger stand, we can also list out these other two events on that, and they can be covered by that licensing which they already acquire. So that'll take care of those other events. We did express to Al that the group could continue to purchase, I think they were getting pizzas and bringing them in and sharing them. They could do that, but it sounds to me like the group will most likely be moving towards this potluck philosophy, and it's a good resolution for them. So just an update.
All righty.
Thank you.
And my last update is, of course, the census. Don't forget, April 1st is Census Day. One of the things that it's important to understand is Minnesota communities, based on our census, receive $15.4 billion because of the census. So per Minnesotan, it's $2,796 per Minnesotan per year that we receive. So it's important and critical that we get out there and let people know. Sometime in March, mid-March is when you will get your census notice. It will have a secure URL code and then a code for your household so you can enter online. There's a phone number you can call to do your census, and then if you don't enter online or do the phone call, then the paper will follow. And if you don't do that, then a census taker will follow. So hopefully you will utilize one of the other three choices. I was on Chasm on Monday talking about the census and the value there, and we are going to get out to other organizations, the Dairy Advisory Committee as well. So just wanted to update you on the census, as I said I would do. That's it, unless you have questions for me.
Questions? If not, there's no questions. We'll take a break and then we'll resume to talk to our colleagues from Sherburne County. We're on break.
Thank you.
session. It might not be progress, but certainly a continuation. We have folks here from Sherburne County to help us make a decision relative to our local airport. And Dr. Willie wants to lead this discussion off, so take it away, Mr. Willie.
We also have representation from Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation here. Leslie Dingham, the Business Development Director, is here, and thank you. And Bruce Messel is the County Administrator in Sherburne County, and Commissioner Schmiesing is the Board Chair this year, I believe, for Sherburne County. But as you know, the discussion about forming an airport authority has been around for a while. Most recently, Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation was instrumental in securing funding to do an airport optimization study, which was reported back to our county and the other interested parties at this time early last year. And then in July, you all authorized the creation or our participation in an ad hoc committee that was charged with creating the enabling resolution to create an airport authority. And so it's that resolution that's before you today. And I'll just highlight a couple of things about that resolution and about how that organization will look in the beginning particularly. It'll have a 9-member board, governing body, 2 from each participating entity, and then 1 that's agreed upon by all entities. The City of St. Cloud, the current owner of the airport, will continue to subsidize that airport, at least in the amount that they are today, which today is about $620,000, and a significant amount of staff support. They will continue to provide that for 10 years, and at which time the business plan says that the subsidy should, if items are implemented in those recommendations, that subsidy should dramatically decrease. Also, we'll continue the sales tax that is currently pledged to the airport in $200,000 a year will continue to flow into the airport, and that's for capital use. And as you all know, the Sherburne County Board, the Benton County Board, have both approved this resolution, and it's coming to you today, and then the resolution would then, depending on how it goes here, will then go to the City of St. Cloud, which approval is expected at that point. The ad hoc committee, of course, included people from all of these entities that negotiated out this final suggested resolution. So, and I'd invite any of our guests here to add any comments to that.
Well, I'll just open up a little bit. It's a privilege to be here in front of the Stearns County Board, neighboring county. We have a history of doing things together. We share a piece of a pretty large city, us and Benton County, and you as well, and we have cooperated in many ways over the years to do joint powers and do different things together. We have started some things together, we have decided not to do things together, and we have ended some things together. And I think that's an important distinction in the efforts that we make. We don't always just join together and do things and leave them forever. We utilize the joint powers in our agreements when they benefit us all. I would like to take the opportunity to thank Commissioner Lensmeyer and Administrator Williams for their efforts in leading us through the process of the ad hoc committee that was appointed. It was a very good effort. We didn't have Benton County along at the beginning of it, but they have seen fit as they have reviewed the work of this committee to join with us. So that was a huge move for us to bring this thing forward for all 3 of us now to be a part of it. I've always questioned how the airport is operated. There's been discussion over the years. You know, we named it a regional airport, and then we left it in the City of St. Cloud. For me, it's been a matter of tax fairness. Some of us have citizens that live in St. Cloud. They've been the ones who funded the airport, although there is a broader regional use for that airport. In fact, at last night's Airport Authority meeting, Airport Advisory Board meeting, there was discussion of T hangars. And we have a waiting list of people that want T hangars at that airport, and we haven't been able to satisfy it. That list includes residents of Elk River and people outside of even this three-county area that have interest. And I think that demonstrates the regional significance of this piece. With that, I'll entertain questions, and I'll probably allow people that know the answers to answer them. So thank you for allowing us to be here today.
No problem, Felix. Any questions, clarifications from my esteemed colleagues here?
I've got a number of questions. Felix and Lee and Mike, in particular, the structure of the authority. It's my understanding that the authority will have sole control over the management and operations then of the airport. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And when you folks were deciding the makeup of that board, I'm a bit concerned that each entity is going to have 2 members of that board, but it does not include elected officials. And so I think I look at maybe like the Sports Commission down in the Twin Cities, and I don't think there's elected officials necessarily on that. And some of the decisions that are made are not necessarily always in the best interest of the public. Whereas if you have elected officials on a board, that oftentimes is a check and balance by the public to say you're going in the wrong direction. Was there a particular reason why you excluded elected officials?
Elected officials will be making those appointments.
But
That responsibility will come back to these boards to make those appointments for them. So, I mean, as a board, we'll have to be responsible to appoint the correct people to fill out that commission.
Okay. And my concern would be is that especially with capital investment, obviously we can build a bigger and better airport, and as far as providing a check for that, and the cost of those improvements and expansion, I guess by having an elected official involved in that process and the planning, they're directly going to see how that's going to impact the taxpayer. Whereas if it's an appointed person, they're not bound by the citizens, they're just bound by that appointment. And I just feel that there's more accountability if we would have an elected official on that board. That's my concern. I do want to compliment and thank you for getting Benton County on board, because with the location of Benton County, in particular Sauk Rapids, to the airport, they had to be on board, and so thank you for getting those folks on board. But again, just the makeup of the board, I personally would rather see maybe one county commissioner perhaps on that board, if that would have been impossible. And then the question of the 9th individual. I know you want to have an odd number just because it's best to have an odd number on a board like that. What would be the particular criterion we would be looking for that last person? Do we have any idea? That 9th person?
Well, an area of expertise, and also I think that 9th person would be a selection that would be of all 3 boards. We would have, all 3 boards would weigh in on that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, I think what Commissioner Schmieding said is absolutely true, that there's still accountability back to the respective boards that make those appointments. But I think the other part of that was really the whole idea of creating the airport authority is to give it an enterprise or a business mindset. And so I think as we had those discussions about who should be on that board, we wanted to be sure that it was people that would provide that business mindset and create actually, hopefully, a profit-making enterprise. And the idea, at least from the ad hoc committee, was that we could best create that by not having elected officials and by finding people that we think can well represent the needs of the airport.
And Mr. Chair, this question's for the public, and any of you can answer it. Will this board have taxing authority, or will that come back before each of the boards to sign off on that? We've been getting questions about watershed districts, for example, lately. So that's something I think, I doubt the public's read the documents, so.
And the answer is yes.
So I think
I mean,
that's,
you know,
to me, that's the other place
I
where
could
we.
ramble on about how it all works out, but the answer is yes. And that will go back to our responsibility to make sure that we have the correct people that we are appointing, that we're responsible for on that committee, on the board.
But even with those, even those appointments, you know, I can attest to this watershed issue going on right now. You have some of the House of Representatives members saying it's taxation without representation, and I mean, it's gotten quite contentious because that board is appointed by the 5 counties that are on this one watershed. And it's becoming an issue, and I am not sure where that structure is going to go yet with that, and that would be one of my concerns too. Without, I get having a business acumen and trying to do what's right on a business perspective, but it's always when it comes down to that taxing, levying authority, that's where it's going to get sticky with, in my opinion, something like this, which is a very high capital-intensive business. One of my first thoughts was it'd be interesting to see what a preliminary budget for this, airport authority would look like, because I have to believe it's going to require an increase from all entities right away, because you're going to be hiring a director, and no?
We don't believe so.
With all due respect, Commissioner, Chair, there is no financial responsibility of any of the 3 counties. So you will not see a budget. Perhaps part of the confusion is that under statute, this is very prescribed in statute, how we would have to create this. It's not a joint powers authority. It is, you are basically birthing a new entity. The relationship will not be an annual budget. The relationship is through the appointment of the, as you mentioned, the commissioners for the airport authority. The hope is, with St. Cloud committing to 10 years of continuing their funding of the operation, that the plan that was researched will allow for basically revenue generation to take over where taxation currently exists. Should that fail, there obviously will be a budget that the authority will have to create, but they will be responsible for that revenue generation, and that's why there is the backstop in statute of taxation. But it will not come back to the individual county commissioners to make that financial decision.
So initially then, obviously the airport's been running at a deficit of $750,000, and that's being picked up by the city of St. Cloud right now. I guess I'm not, how does that amount get propped up in this new authority?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, without going through the whole study that was done, the goal, and we're all a little cynical on studies, the goal is that it could actually be a break-even entity or an operation with the revenue opportunities that are there and for additional activity to occur at the airport. Should that fail, then there will have to be some sort of public subsidy, which is the taxation authority of the authority, not of the 3 counties or the city. I'm sorry.
I was saying that taxing, the area that would be taxed would be all 3 counties.
Right.
Right.
Well, to that end, part of what I was wondering is it like Tri-County Solid Waste Management, where there's differing amounts that get charged to different counties, or because obviously Stearns this is a neutral statement. Stearns does not have any land right in the airports, but we are the largest county. Would we be assessed more? How have those conversations go? Mostly because we have constituents we need to be able to address.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, it would simply be a levy over all 3 entities' property valuations. So there's no formula, there's no approval by individual commission, county boards of any budgets amount. It would be its own taxing authority of the 3 counties.
And then one other quick comment, Commissioner, if it's okay with you. With respect to the issue about the appointments, that's also prescribed in statute. The backstop for the political entities that are birthing this is not just the appointments, as Commissioner Schmiesing noted. The statute does allow for a entity to withdraw at some point as well.
Right.
So, you know, for those of us who are new to the project or are a little bit cynical, we're really looking at almost like a 10-year experiment, which as this gets going, St. Cloud, or the city is essentially ceding its authority. The proof will be in what happens in the 10 years as this authority gets up and going, and if it demonstrates revenue generation. Your colleagues across the river were very, very cautious, and they wanted to make sure that that backstop was clear. So if things don't work out, at some point in the future, we would face the dissolution of this entity as well.
I want to, yeah, I had that question to come up later, and I want to just clarification on that, Bruce, thank you. So we would have the option to withdraw, that it would be something that we could do. It's not, once we're in for good, is that correct?
Yeah, barring a statutory change, that is correct, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, it's what, 365 days or?
Yeah, there's a requirement under statute, but there is the potential for it to dissolve, at which point, it's not 100% clear what the reversion would be, but the few entities that have gone through this in the state have never gotten to that point, but there is a statutory provision, yes.
Right.
Jeff?
There's another issue that's unique here to Stearns County. We have 3 other airports. Paynesville has an airport, Bruton has an airport, Sauk Center has an airport. So this would allow those people out in Paynesville, El Rosa, and Padua, and Holdingport, and everywhere else out there to be taxed with their money going over to that airport.
Commissioner, with respect, Sherburne has a similar situation with the airport of Princeton, and the folks in Princeton have already weighed in, and part of the response of the county there is we're working with them to conduct their own study and to hopefully work with them to provide regional opportunities as well. Granted, we don't have 3 like you mentioned, but we're not completely unique in that situation.
You have 2, and both of those are in Sherburne County, including this one.
Princeton and this one.
Located in
Correct. Yeah.
Sherburne.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments, observations?
Just maybe a question. I think it was a while back, and we heard the issue with the small airport, where it was in Silver Bay, where they couldn't afford to fund the repairs anymore because, getting rid of this at some point in the future, how highly likely would that ever be if it wasn't profitable? Because they would weigh in on all this monies they've provided to the airport, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, first of all, the FAA will ultimately be the decider of whether the Joint Powers is authorized. We envision there'll be a year of review on that. And as you noted, airports in general are heavily subsidized on the capital side, specifically at the federal level. It's a little different because Silver Bay is a general aviation airport, where St. Cloud Regional Airport Authority has commercial as well as general aviation. The experience of a commercial airport failing, we don't have one in the state that we're aware of, so I don't know the specifics on Silver Bay. But my experience in managing the Moorhead Airport when I was the city manager in Moorhead was essentially a failing general aviation airport with a lot of infrastructure costs. The reality is like anything else, it's treated as a city department, unlike Fargo, which has actually a better model to what we're doing here. And so as a result, it competes with streets and water and sewer and all of those things, where if it's a standalone entity, it's kind of a do or die for that authority. They have to go out and get federal funds. They would have to consider a taxation opportunity if needed. So I think it's a little different animal. But with respect to your specific question, if you'd like us to explore some more, we'd try to find out the what-if scenarios, and we'd work with the state aviation folks to go through the statute on how that dissolution process would work.
Okay, any other questions, clarifications? You got some folks here that have some background in this stuff. Now's the time to get some input.
With respect, Mr. Chair, to perhaps Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation and their interest in this. Leslie can speak a little bit to the impetus behind this from the business and the commercial side as well.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Leslie Dingman, Business Development Director with the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation. And yes, since the beginning of our organization, pursuing growth and utilization of the St. Cloud Airport has been one of our #1 priorities. In fact, the business community has invested over $1.6 million on behalf of the work we're doing at GSDC into growing utilization. We did have the pleasure to work with the Stephen Baldwin and Associates, the consultant who was hired to do this plan. So over that year time, we worked very closely with the advisory committee, which included members of the business community, to come up with a plan that's really, the best options to go forward. So in regards to GSDC, we do believe that regional airport authority really is the most fair and equitable solution at this point.
Anything else? Leslie's perspective is a little broader than the St. Cloud Development Corporation. Prior to that, she had a similar position at Big Lake.
Yes.
So she has a sensitivity for the small cities aspect of this as well. So her perspective has some value for sure.
Lee, if I could just add one thing, Mr. Chair. The study was done, and it was very clear in the efforts that have been put forward that airport is an underperforming asset for this community. And that's what this effort is about, is to try to make that asset, the investment in it, perform up to the level that we believe it can. And that would be significant. If we accomplish that, there'll be only benefit to the taxpayers. There'll be no expense to them.
And to that point, Felix, that is something I'd like to see happen. But my concern is, again, putting it into the hands of appointed people. If we're going to be investing tens of millions of dollars into that, I would hope that we're going to be receiving those tens of millions of dollars in return. Whereas if we don't, then that'll be brought on the burden of the taxpayers. That's my concern.
And I'll just, I'll respond to that, and that there is different opinions on that. In our boardroom, and when we discussed it with our commissioners, we thought, let's get this into the hands of people that are airport professionals, economic development professionals, that all of the wisdom to run an airport does not reside in a county boardroom. So, we have a different perspective on that. So that is a difference.
Right, and what I would have proposed, it would have been a blended, and so that I would have one commissioner and then one appointed. So,
Jeff,
to speak to Felix's point there and usage and things, is last fall I had a situation where I was out in Painesville for a few hours, and it is just amazing as to how much use that airport gets. It's unbelievable. So we extend the same opportunity to them. And they can tax all the way into Sherburne County and Benton.
Yeah. Well, there may be a model like that. Currently isn't in statute, but actually that's one thing that came up into Princeton, is how do they go broader reach? So you may see some legislative discussion in the future from the general aviation airports, sir. Yeah. Mr. Chair, with respect to Commissioner Persky's comment, it is a valid comment to consider that when the city drops out and the board goes from 9 to 7, that may be an appropriate time to consider the makeup and whether it is functional. Again, the financial risk during the first 10 years is very different than after that. And to your point, perhaps we should treat it with that just in mind.
Thank you.
Steve?
Well, I'm struggling with this concept of the funding for this, because it's spread out over. How is it based on the amount of tax parcels? How does that tax structure? Where is the shared?
Well, go ahead, Randy. Yeah, it's similar. I guess you could think of the school district. We have school districts that cross county lines, right? So when we calculate that, we take the whole value of that school district, irrespective of the lines. This would be similar. Taking the value of all the property in Benton, Sherburne, and Stearns County, and the amount of tax gets divided out amongst that. So a $200,000 home in Stearns County or Benton or Sherburne will pay the same amount. Now, Stearns County does have more properties and more values, but.
So in that regard, it would pay it more.
Yeah.
Because of the size of the county.
Right, that's right, but the same house, the same value would
Right,
be paid the
applied
same
to
in
each.
one, yeah.
To that point then, Randy, for the next 10 years, any deficit, initially, we would have the compensation from the city of St. Cloud, and then any additional dollars that would be deficit would then be spread across the counties to those that would be in the tri-county area, with the exception of the St. Cloud area, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, that brings up the question here. Is this a question of you must tax all of the county or nothing? Or is there a way to split this off and say only a certain portion of Stearns County is involved with this?
We did not look at the issue of subrogating or creating a subordinate service district within a county. I'd have to look at the statute and talk to some attorneys to see whether the statute allows it. The way the statute's written is it has to be a minimum of one city and one county. So it's possible to split a county. We may have to look for statutory change.
So it is possible to.
Well, again, without researching the statute, sir, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
And is, just to be clear, it sounds like the most likely scenario would be after year 10 because of the city continuing to take on the amounts. I mean, unless something, the experiment, as you're calling it, really is a 10-year one, has at best a small risk for, I don't want to put you in a bad spot, but in terms of property tax to be come through, because you haven't even started with parking or fees or what are the other pieces. So where our risk really is, if we have any, is much further out. Would that be, or maybe year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clark, with respect to your question, we looked at multiple scenarios, the what-ifs. And as Commissioner Schmiesing said, nobody's here trying to hide the worst case, best case scenarios here. There is the potential that during the first 10 years, the city's continued commitment may be insufficient with the activities of the operations, and the authority that you appoint may choose to initiate a tax even before those 10 years begin. That is a possibility. The study does not envision that because there's a lot more revenue, and in fact, the city's perspective is if this authority gets up and going, their goal was to actually get out even earlier than paying, because the projections are that revenue will increase, therefore the city's support could go down during the first 10 years. The reality is someplace between those two extremes. We also can't forget, with respect to the capital, there's approximately $9 million in prior bond reserves available today, plus, as Mr. Williams noted, there's $200,000 a year for the next 20 years committed by the 5 cities that have already committed that. So there's a fair amount of capital even without going after FAA activities. When you look at all of those financial pieces, is there risk? Yes. Is there opportunity? Yes. And I think that's why the group that worked on this for the last year came to the conclusion that the potential rewards and the benefits much outweigh those potential financial risks.
And Mr. Chair, I think we all share some understandable concerns about what does this mean in terms of uncertainty for the future with taxpayers, particularly maybe those who are currently engaged and contributing, as it were. I think I'd be remiss, though, if I didn't just personally reinforce, really appreciate the good work that GSDC did, the work of the advisory group. It's become apparent over a period of time from a regional standpoint, not just the city of St. Cloud, that doing something different and having a real focus and trying to make significant steps forward from, and focus, I'll say focus again, is really important. So, I mean, in spite of what you're hearing from me, I think this is an important thing to be doing. I want to make sure that our taxpayers are recognizing we're giving this great thought, especially because none of us will be making those decisions.
And with respect, Commissioner, to your comments, the one thing that I saw coming in late in the study was, in many ways, I would pose the question of whether or not this study was short-sighted, in the sense that if you really take the long view, the opportunities that don't exist in some of our general aviation airports are that the St. Cloud Regional Airport will be the second airport for the greater St. Cloud, Minneapolis, St. Paul region. Think about what Dallas Love is, or what some of the LA secondary airports are, or Phoenix has Mesa, or Chicago has Midway. There are opportunities out of 20 years that look a lot more attractive than just these first
Right.
20 years.
And since we were already supposed to become the second airport, the feeder airport in the
Correct.
state, we clearly need some other partners, because if we're doing it just on our own, that won't be enough.
Well, and in many ways, at least without a dramatic change in the industry, it's more a matter of
Absolutely.
when than if.
Right.
But then the other opportunities, as Chair Commissioning has noted, just the potential for conversations about what happens if, you'll notice in the joint powers, we specifically put in there for unmanned or unstaffed or unpiloted aircraft, the potential to be a hub for regional transportation of drones. And the creativity there, or taking what we have with the National Guard and Reserve contract and building on that. It doesn't just have to be the commercial piece that could lead to this economic development potential down the road. And with some of the conversations already with what St. Cloud has developed from being a regional transportation and transport hub, that marriage with air has really unlimited potential.
Steve, you had something else?
Well, no, I've said this before, if this airport would be on the west side of the St. Cloud Metro, I mean, I think it'd be a different view because you draw further west. To me, it just seems a complicated situation because the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport is so close that I really don't ever envision it being a transportation type hub. I mean, maybe more of a commercial, terminal type situation. But yeah, and not to muddy the waters, but the other thing I see after whatever happens here is we have North Star. Where do we go with that? And that's not here nor there at this point, but it's also another potential.
Well, if these decisions were easy, ordinary people would make them.
Just to echo Steve's comments there, because I've gotten calls from people out in Melrose, Albany area and say, once I'm on I-94, why would I pull off there? Whereas if it was out west, they'd have no problem.
The mistake that has continually been made, I've been watching this for a long time, is that we use the idea of passenger service with the notion that, well, this would familiarize the public with the potential of the airport. I think the reason I'm saying is that was a mistake. I think the real potential of the airport is commercial aviation as opposed to passenger aviation. And we probably stressed that passenger aspect a little too hard over the years. I'm wondering if at some point there isn't going to be a freight component to this. At one time, prior to the construction of the massive FedEx terminal in Rogers, I would have thought that would have taken place a little closer to up here, but even that is a surface transportation facility. It's not an air facility, so we still have some potential there. But that's the real long-term potential of the airport. It's always been an underutilized asset to date. This isn't a challenge that's totally unique to St. Cloud. There are aviation components typically to our NACO conferences, for example. I'd urge you to, and when you see those come up, to take advantage of it. But the reality is to be a player, long run, we need something like this. Well, how do we support it? How do we get from here to there? In the discussions of this, I guess don't let perfect be the enemy of good. There are aspects of this whole proposal that we can all pick and choose to dislike, but long run, do the benefits outweigh, does the upside outweigh the negative? And that's going to be the decision we have to make. What else we've got? I think the horse is beginning to gasp, but I think it's still some life left. Go ahead.
Maybe just a quick comment or question to maybe move this forward. What's the operating cost right now of the airport? So, if you could say that there's 3 counties going to be involved, the total at this point is $1 million divided over these 3 counties. So you can kind of get an idea of the financial picture of what it could mean to the residents.
At this point, it would be roughly $700,000 divided over the entire 3 counties to continue to operate the airport the way it does. Our goal is to diminish that, but that would be how it would be divided.
And I believe we calculated that out, and it was on average $1, Mike, or $1.50 on a $200,000 home.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair and Commissioner, Commissioner Smeezing is talking about the subsidy. The total budget is more like $1.2 million.
Yeah, there's some soft costs that are in there, yeah.
So because the airport does generate revenue on its own already. And I'm sorry, what was this?
The approximate tax impact of that.
Oh, I do have that in front of me, actually. If you had, if we had to levy $500,000 over the 3 counties, a $200,000 home would pay $3.12.
So realistically, right now, though, it's $750,000,
so
almost $1 million, so it'd be about $5.
It would be a $200,000 home would be $4.69
on $500,000.
No, on $750,000.
Okay.
And that currently is.
And that's levied over all 3 counties.
Right.
And that money is currently being paid by the residents that live in the 3 counties that are residents of St. Cloud.
Right.
Yes.
So, that load is going somewhere now.
Right.
Yeah,
Here we have, another government entity with its own taxing authority just absolutely scares me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just seeing what's going on with the watershed district right now. And then some of the unique things that Stearns County has with the other airports. I think it would really be hurting them. My horse is dead.
Yeah, we can have a motion.
So recognizing that we do have the concerns we just said, and it would probably be good to be checking and seeing, can we modify before we do, this group would do any taxing about whether a county could be subdivided off? I'm going to move approval of this. I think the benefits do outweigh the, and if we're not ready to do it, that's fine too. But as you said, we've got 2 of our other sister counties that have approved it.
Okay, well, we've got a motion, folks. Is there a second? I'm sure there's going to be subsequent discussion after we even get a second, so let's keep moving this forward. I'll second it. Keep talking.
Commissioner Clark, you mentioned the option of subdividing it?
Commissioner
do we have that
Morgan
option?
asked that question. I mean, it seems like we're not talking about an imminent impact outside the St. Cloud specific, who's already involved, part of our taxpayers. Others are getting the benefit, but St. Cloud would be the only part right now. Since that's not an immediate likelihood, it would seem like some more research can end up being done prior to any particular levy. I also am wondering if, when we appoint our people, this is separate from this, if we could say, look, if it looks like you're going to be voting on this, we want you to come back and make a pitch to us, because we want to be able to weigh in. That might be something people don't want to do, but I know I'd feel more comfortable. I'd like to see an annual update on what's going on with
for sure.
revenues, right? So I
That's
think
reasonable.
I think there's some things that we could build into this so that if we really start seeing that we could run into some challenges that can't be addressed with some of the creative solutions that have already been talked about, then we have an opportunity for either weighing in and saying, yeah, right, or withdrawing.
Okay, to that point, I appreciate the regional significance of the airport. I very much appreciate Benton County and Stock Rapids joining and being supportive of it. I like the idea of the potential for withdrawal and the potential for the restructuring later on down the road. With respect to the limitation within the county, to tweak it a little bit more, with respect to Steve's district with Paynesville, Bruton, and Sauk Center out there, it would seem to me that those people could do very much from a benefit of those tax dollars actually going into their own airport opposed to going over into the airport in Sherburne County. So if that would be a potential to exempt his district, that would be a selling point.
If we get to that point. I mean, I
will.
will.
It's be a pretty happy accident, folks, if this airport, what's been happening is because of the uncertainty of the long-term perspective of the airport, the city has been reluctant to make additional investments. And as a result, this, the current possibilities here have not been fully utilized. I think actually Jeff has a decent idea here. I think that this could actually stimulate the further development of the smaller airport. And I don't see it of if that one, of a choice between St. Cloud and the other airports. I think St. Cloud being able to deliver, especially if we go in the commercial direction, I think that it would stimulate more development at those local airports. It seems to work in other parts of the country, so it's, yeah, there's risk involved. So what? This was easy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
You got something, Felix?
If I could just add, this has been a 3-county effort. I think if we begin to parcel it out into something less than that at this point, I think we virtually end our efforts. So I think you got to think about that. If we start to contract it, then it goes back to all of us, and then should Elk River be in it? Should Foley be in it? And so I mean, I just that needs to be understood. There's been a lot of effort that's been put together to get this where it's at, and if we would have some sort of a subsequent change as far as boundaries and those types of things, I think it would be pretty difficult for us to work through, and I think that should be part of your consideration when you make your decision.
So Felix, I guess, and Jeff, I don't want to put words into yours. I mean, if you were saying, and I'm still trying to digest some of this, that let's say it's 700,000, and that's going to be divvied up between the 3 counties equally, then that's one thing, but that's not what's going to happen. It will be more on one county. So maybe it's in a 30-mile radius, or it's in a 40-mile, I mean, whatever it is. And I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with it, but as we're moving forward, and particularly before, and I hope this won't be the case, but before there would be any additional tax levy, knowing what might be some other creative ways of doing this, because let's face it, right now it's a very small area geographically that has the burden, but not. It's a much broader geographic area that has the benefit. So I hope you're not hearing at least me say, I want to undo your good. I just think that it makes some sense that we really are taking a look as you move forward are there some other ways to do this? I truly hope that we don't even need to get to that point.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Clark, I think if I use an articulation from the academic world, there's soft power and there's hard power. The soft message or the soft power from the board here is well received. There's going to be a year in which the FAA is going to be reviewing this joint powers agreement, and then there's a year of having to go through literally every lease, every land title to make the transfer from the city to the entity. Clearly, the spirit of the conversation here would be reflected in the development of the entity's bylaws. I think it would be totally appropriate to say we expect that annual budgets will be presented to the, I'll call them the creating entities for feedback. All of those things are very legitimate and can be echoed. When it comes to statutory changes, we're limited by statute, and that's what we're running into with your conversation today. But very clearly, if this board's interest is to make sure that there's a watch on this, to make sure that it's moving, I have to tell you that's echoed, and it already has been echoed in both counties. There are 3 county commissioners in Sherburne County who asked the same question. Why are we putting our votes for something on the west side of our county? And we have 3 that have no relationship whatsoever to this part. And Benton County had the same conversation. Yeah. And yet at the end of the day, right, the statute says one city and at least one county can create a regional airport authority. So that's where we came down. We thought this was a very good step, but everything you're saying can be reflected in how this entity is created. And clearly your charge to your appointees can be, you're not raising taxes unless you convince us, even though, what's your ultimate authority? You could remove that person. So, and we even had folks do the percentages. Well, we're going to pay 15% of the tax bill, and we're going to get 22% of the power because we'll have 2 out of 9 seats. Yes, there's going to be some imbalances there. That's in any joint powers authority. That's pretty much true. Those things aren't new for you guys.
Right. So there's really 3 possibilities. There's perfect, there's pretty good, and there's livable. And I think we're at livable, but go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I think I could support this, and I know not to step on you here, Felix, where you don't want to split things up, but I could support this if somehow we could get it in the statute that it would eliminate the 2 western rural districts, Districts 5 and 3 of Stearns County. Then I would support it.
We'd be the only county that would limit it geographically, so might be a little, for this proposal, it might be a little late in the game, but right, you get the idea. Anything else, folks?
Well, and the other thing too, to actually use the opt-out in the agreement, you'd almost have to have either an annual presentation to each county's board. Oh, yeah. Because otherwise, when would you ever utilize a 365-day, here's my notice, we're out?
Yeah, I've heard that throughout this discussion. Well, have you got anything else? If not, there's a motion and a second, so it's showtime. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Probably do roll call. Commissioner Morgan.
Nay.
Commissioner Forsky.
Aye.
Commissioner Notch.
Nay.
Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Lenzmeyer.
Aye.
Passes 3-2.
See, that was easy.
Thank you. It's a big lift. I understand that, and I understand all of your votes both ways. It is a big lift. So
we may be sharing votes.
And Felix, you thought you were just another pretty face. Now we know there's a brain in there too.
Thank you for all your work.
Never been accused of either one of them. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Public Works, I guess we can have Jeff stumble through his presentation.
Good morning. Jeff Miller, Assistant County Engineer, here for Jody, who's at jury duty today. My first item is to request authorization to advertise for bids for CP 073-158-020, which is our County Road 158, from Trunk Highway 23 to County Road 2 in Cold Spring. We plan to begin advertising on Tuesday, February 18th, and open bids on March 13th.
I'd move to approve.
There's a second?
Second.
Then we can discuss. Second, okay. Well, there's no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
All right, my next item is for information only. It's to remind you of the Transportation Day at the Capitol on Wednesday, March 18th from 9 to 2:30. And also the 2020 Washington DC Transportation Fly-In is on Tuesday, May 19th through Thursday, May 21st. And that's all I have.
Okay, and I don't think any of those take action, so.
Right.
You got any questions for Jeff? If not,
Very
thanks a
good.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Auditor treasurer, we need 2 commissioners for the canvassing board.
Exactly, yep, and canvassing board is on March 5th at 2 o'clock. Should be pretty quick.
Okay,
I noticed the neutral way you said it, but there really are only 2 of us that could possibly do it, so.
Well, it's for the presidential, so all of you could.
Okay.
Yep,
all right.
any 2 of you could.
Traditionally haven't, okay.
Nobody else does. I mean, I don't have a compelling desire. What was the date?
March 5th, 2 o'clock.
I think generally we've had the board chair and the vice chair
We can do that.
in most cases.
During the other times when there is a commissioner on the ballot, right, then you have.
Right, then you can't.
Right, so that will come later.
Yeah, it'll come later. For this one, it's available for everybody, and if you can't make it, I can find replacements, so
Can do
don't
it.
worry about that.
All right.
Got it on the calendar now.
I can volunteer for that.
I would say I'll be alternate if somebody can't make it.
I don't think it takes action. It just takes yeah, I'll do it.
Well, we should have a motion.
Okay.
I'll move to have Commissioner Lenzmeyer and Commissioner Clark.
Okay. All right, in a second.
I'll second that. Steve, you want to be the alternate if they can't?
That's
hang it?
fine if
All right.
somebody gets sick.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, issues by commissioners. Take it away, Steve.
I'm all issued out.
Joe.
I have nothing.
Terrell?
Same.
Jeff?
I have nothing.
I've had enough myself. So if there's nothing else before this august body, I'm going to say this meeting is adjourned.